Hello and welcome to Protecting Yourself from Fraud Crimes. Let's go ahead and get started. I've got a lot to cover for you today. All right. So we're going to be talking about different types of fraud, what it costs the industry, mitigating fraud, and how to protect yourself from fraud. And just a quick disclosure that the information in these slides are general information and not a promise of perfection or a cure to a person's situation. Here's information about who I am and my experience and qualifications. Feel free to pause the feed to read about me. So let's get started. We're going to talk about some fraud crimes and what it is. So fraud and financial crimes are a form of theft, larceny, that occur when a person or entity takes money or property or uses them in an illicit manner with the intent to gain a benefit from it. Fraud is the use of intentional deception to gain something of value, usually money. Fraud is generally committed through the use of false statements, misrepresentation, or dishonest conduct intended to mislead or deceive. So let's talk about some fraud statistics. In 2021, we had 16.9 billion in fraud losses due to identity theft in 2021. 80% of financial crime schemes are driven by organized crime. 6 billion in synthetic identity theft fraud to US lenders, and we'll talk about that in a future slide. 25 billion in COVID unemployment benefits were stolen by fraudsters in 2020. Unemployment claims were huge in 2020. Many people lost their jobs or became unemployed due to the pandemic. Fraudsters capitalized on this by committing identity theft. They set up accounts and had unemployment benefits transferred to these mule accounts where they were able to transfer the funds to other various accounts. Unfortunately, this was a nightmare for people who legitimately needed these benefits and couldn't receive them because the fraudster was already using their name. And trying to get through to an agent in the unemployment office to discuss the matter was literally impossible at this time throughout many states. This was horrible for people who really needed these funds. We also had 72% increase in account takeover losses year over year. We'll talk about account takeover later. ID theft losses increased 13% year over year. And check fraud losses increased 50% in 2021 year over year, 13 million of which were ID theft. These are staggering numbers. There are many kinds of fraud types. We're going to discuss these 7 that I have on the screen: identity theft, synthetic fraud, account takeover, cybercrime, scams, first-party fraud, and fraud attacks. So we're going to talk about identity theft first. Identity theft, also known as identity fraud, is a crime in which an imposter obtains key pieces of personal identifiable information, or we call it PII, such as Social Security or driver's license numbers to impersonate someone else. There is an identity theft case every 22 seconds. And some of the signs are, if you ever are caught up in this web of identity theft, some of the signs would be you're no longer receiving household bills in the mail because they've changed your address. You are being turned down for credit unexpectedly. You go to buy a car and they turn you down and you're like, what? I know my credit score is good. What's going on? You're being billed for items you did not purchase. There are changes you don't recognize on your financial statements. Your tax return was rejected. That's a big one. Fraudsters, kind of similar to the unemployment, they were doing the same thing with tax returns. They would steal your identity, set up an account, and then they would file your tax return and go ahead and get your tax refund. And then they'll send it to these accounts, these mule accounts, and then they'll go ahead and transfer it to other accounts. This is a nightmare, and trying to get through to an IRS agent during tax season, it's almost impossible. There are test charges showing up on your statement or pending. These are very prevalent for fraudsters. What they like to do is they like to go ahead and test credit cards to see if they're actually working, if they're good, and they get authorizations without any issues. So you might see some authorizations for maybe 0 or 50 cents or 30 cents or $1 just to test it to see if it works. That means you're testing it and they're about to go ahead and put a large charge on there. If this happens, contact your bank, cancel that card immediately. Your creditors will alert you to suspicious activity. Sometimes that's also a red flag or a sign of identity theft. If you start getting these alerts, like, what's going on, that's because they're picking up some things that you might not see. So keep those in mind. So let's talk about synthetic fraud. Synthetic fraud is a type of fraud whereby a fraudster combines real and fake information to create an identity, or we call that Frankenstein fraud. Synthetic fraud is the fastest growing financial crime at this time. The average charge-off balance for synthetic fraud is $15,000. Up to 15% of credit card losses can be blamed on synthetic fraud. And in 2023, lenders expect losses could reach $48 billion on synthetic fraud. Synthetic fraud is a growing trend and a big headache for financial institutions. There has been an uptick in the use of this type of fraud as fraudsters continue to find ways to adapt and change methodologies to bypass certain systems in place that lenders use to counter these issues. How does this affect the consumer? Well, these losses can increase interest rates lenders charge to borrow money, making it more difficult and very expensive to get the things you want in life. It's a domino effect that affects us all. So we'll talk about account takeover. So account takeover, or ATO, is gaining access to someone's account by utilizing stolen credentials for unauthorized transactions. Credentials can be obtained by fraudsters in many ways, purchased from a dark web, phishing, vishing, and smishing, and we'll talk about that shortly. Social engineering. This is the use of deception to manipulate individuals into divulging confidential or personal information that may be used for fraudulent purposes. Malware. Malware, that's software that is specifically designed to disrupt, damage, or gain unauthorized access to a computer system. With account takeover, they use these mule accounts, and we talked about that a little bit earlier in another slide. These mule accounts, accounts that may be dormant or accounts that they set up, and they use these accounts for money laundering. They'll make deposits in there, and then they'll wire the funds to other accounts all over different countries, different banking institutions, and sometimes you may already have an account set up, and you just haven't used it in a while. They'll get wind of this, and then they'll use this account as a mule account and start funneling money in. They'll put money in there. You might get an alert to say, hey, you just deposited $2,000, and you're like, I did. Well, this is probably the beginnings of money laundering and ID theft. So what you want to do is you want to contact your bank and say, hey, that wasn't me. As much as I love to have this money, it's not me. I don't know what's going on, because if you do not report that, you can be complicit in this, and the banking institution may think that you're a part of this scheme and scam and include you in any type of actions that they may take with law enforcement. So keep that in mind. So let's talk about cyber crimes. So what is cybercrime? Cybercrime is when a device or internet is used as a tool to commit an offense. So some of these would include phishing, smishing, and vishing. So phishing is when a hacker sends you an email that looks like it's from a legitimate source. Smishing is a relatively new and rising phenomenon. It's phishing via text. And vishing is a phone scam to get you to share personal and financial information, such as account numbers and passwords. So to protect yourself on this, you need to be suspicious of unsolicited phone calls, visits, somebody knocking on your door, telling you that they're selling solar panels, have no ID and no business cards. That's definitely a red flag. Or email messages from individuals inquiring about your account information. Verify their identity, even if the individual claims to be from a legitimate organization. Somebody knocks on your door and say that they're from the utility company. Are they in a marked vehicle? Are they in uniform? Do they have ID? check these things. Never provide your confidential information or password information to anyone in person or over the telephone without first identifying that they are from the organization that they say that they're from. So with phishing, the number one tip, never click on links or open attachments in emails from people you don't know. For smishing, the number one tip, do not respond. Don't even text stop or unsubscribe. They're trying to determine if that is a legitimate phone number. And phishing, don't answer a call from a number you don't recognize. So let's talk a little bit more about phishing. So phishing, it looks like a reputable source. You have order confirmation numbers, improper grammar is in here. That's a red flag. The from email is not legitimate. If you look at this one, you can see up here, this is my former name. And when you open it up and you click on it, you see that this email is from this person here at gmail.com. That's not even one of my emails. You also see here that it's from PayPal. Well, that might be legit, but then this is not even capitalized. The W is not even capitalized. So you have grammar issues there. It's also telling you that you paid $360 for something. They have what it is. And then you scroll down, here's more grammar issues here. Scroll down some more and you look here. What is this? I've never seen a copyright look like that. The street's not even capitalized. So there's a lot of red flags on this email to alert you that this is not a legitimate source. The first thing is this email here. This is the biggest red flag. It's telling me that it's coming from me, number one, which this is my old name, but this is the email that it's actually coming from. So keep that in mind. Here's another one. Once again, it's saying it's coming from me with my old name, but it's actually coming from this person here. It's saying it's coming from the Geek Squad. Once again, improper grammar. And then we have here that this is going to take place for the next 5 years. They don't have anything like that. Usually these types of auto renewals are yearly or maybe 2 years at the most, but I do have this and it's yearly. So I knew that this was definitely fraud. I saved it just for you guys, but I deleted it once I captured the image so I can include it on my slide. But these are the kind of things you need to look at. These are red flags. These type of things, these are definitely red flags. A lot of times these are coming from people from other countries, and English may be their second language. And so the grammar is something that they're not proficient on. So just keep that in mind. Smishing. This comes as a text message, often ask you a question, ignore it, don't respond or text back. Spammers, scammers are checking to see if the telephone is a good number. And I have an example over here of what one of them actually looks like. Please call, releasing a representative workplace as soon as feasible, relating to file number, you know, and this is, I don't even know what this is, but I know it's nothing that I had anything to do with. And my robo killer actually blocked it. So that was good. But I was able to capture it for this particular slide. Vishing. So the message can appear concerning and urgent. Many times you are directed to press keys to speak to an agent. And when the agent appears, it's the fraudster. They start asking you for personal information. This information can later be used to commit identity theft. Many times the information is sold on the dark web in bulk. This is a call that came into my robo-blocker. It creates a sense of urgency with a concerning message. I'm going to play the message. Listen to the message, not the crazy robo-killer answering service. That's part of what they do. The robo-killer is a great tool to prevent spammers and scammers from getting through to you. However, sometimes it will block calls that you may be expecting from sources that are outside your saved contacts. It happens to be worth it, the yearly fee that I pay for it. But if you're expecting a call, you can always turn it off the robocaller for a specific amount of time. So you'll hear that in the background, but just listen to what the actual caller is. It's like some type of an auto robot or something. They're trying to get me to press buttons. There's a current trend right now of doing this. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to play this for you.
Hello. Thank you for calling our 24-hour security department. We regret to inform you that your debit card is locked. To reactivate it, please press 1. To leave, press 2. Yep. Start on me.
So as you can see, they wanted me to press some buttons. I didn't press anything. Actually, it was blocked by the robo killer. And I really appreciated that. But that's you can hear the little answering service in the background. That's just part of their service. It's like a trick that they use. They call it bots. But yeah, let's go ahead and continue on here. So I ignored that call. Don't answer it. And it's basically a scam to get you for them to gain information. All right, so we're going to talk about common types of scams. So 1 out of 4 people are impacted by these types of crimes: imposter scams, purchase scams, charity scams. Almost 850,000 reported one of these crimes in 2021. These losses were upward of $6.9 billion. So these are imposter scams are scams that involve a scammer pretending to be someone else in order to steal money or personal information. And some of the red flags are: you receive unsolicited calls or emails claiming you owe money. They request payment or donation in the form of gift cards or wire transfer. They use a sense of urgency or threatening language. Messages are poorly written, inconsistent, and vague. You must pay a fee in order to receive a prize or a job. Some of them listed are romance scams, job opportunity scams, government imposter scams, sweepstake and prize scams, family emergency scams, education scams, and tech support scams. So we'll go through each one. So romance scams or online dating scams are among the most common scams on the internet. So millions of people every year use dating apps or social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, or Snapchat to make connections and find love. But sometimes all they end up with is a fraudster on the other end of the line, focused on emptying your bank account and leaving you with a broken heart. So these scammers establish your trust over several months with the intention of stealing from you and also obtaining personal information about you and stealing your identity. Romance scams played a long game. They sometimes build a scheme up for several months or even years. I've seen a show, it's called American Greed. They actually had one on there where the romance scam, it was definitely a long game. She played a 7-year long game just to steal from this person. She ended up being arrested, by the way. Government imposter scams. A government or military imposter scam is a type of fraud where scammers pose as government officials or military members in order to trick you into giving them money or personal information. These scams aim to exploit your trust in the government or the military. During a government imposter scam, the scammer will pretend to contact you from a government or military agency such as the IRS, Medicare, Social Security Administration, or VA. I've gotten those IRS calls. They claim that if you don't pay a fine or provide personal information, you could be deported or arrested or lose your government military benefits. I've had those voicemails left. In these situations, you should hang up and call the real number and speak to an agent at that legitimate facility if you are concerned. So just to note, if this is the case and you owe Uncle Sam money, you better believe that they will send you certified mail and the IRS will be notified. Sweepstakes or prize scams. So these are designed to trick you into sending money to the scammer. With the continued growth of social media and other electronic communications, scammers are finding new ways to contact you with this wonderful news that you just won a prize. But here's the trick. You got to pay a small claim fee. So just keep that in mind. These are not true. Hang up the phone. It's just it's fake news. Family emergency scams. A family emergency imposter scam is a type of fraud where the scammer poses as a family member or friend in need of urgent financial assistance. You will typically be contacted by phone or email or social media and told that your relative or friend is in some kind of trouble and needs money immediately. The scammer may say that they are stranded somewhere, have been in an accident or been arrested. They may also claim to be in a hospital or face an eviction. The scammer will often use emotional manipulation to convince you to send money, often through gift cards, wire transfers, or prepaid debit cards. They may also ask you to provide personal information such as your social security number or bank account information. If this happens, hang up and call people that are close to you or that family member to see if this is actually true. Education scams. There are many scams out there that target people who are trying to get an education. Some of these scams involve promising free or low-cost scholarships, but then requiring the student to pay an upfront fee. Others may involve fake online schools that claim to be accredited but aren't, or promise degrees for little to no work. Believe you me, receiving a degree is hard work and it's not easy, and it certainly isn't free or cheap. Tech support scams. Tech support scams typically involve a scammer who tries to trick you into giving them remote access to your computer or pay them for unnecessary services. Once you give them access, they may install malware on your device in order to steal your personal identification. Tech support scams are becoming increasingly common, and they can be very convincing. The scammer often use high pressure tactics to get you to act quickly, and may even threaten to delete your files or disable your computer if you don't comply. If I accidentally click on one of these malwares and receive these messages, I quickly unplug my computer from the wall and leave it unplugged for a while. Then I'll reboot it later, run a virus scan, and if there are issues, I'll take it to be serviced, or sometimes you may even have to replace it. Purchase scams. So purchase scams are any type of scam that involves a scammer using the internet to sell fake or subpar goods or services. Some red flags include the deal is too good to be true. They request payment in the form of gift cards or wire transfer. They use urgent language. Ads or listings include grammar and spelling errors. We talked about that earlier. The seller is asking for personal information before you even make a purchase. I remember when I started my business, I had to file several papers with the state, several legal documents with the state. And as soon as I did that, immediately about a week later, I started receiving all of these documents in the mail that looked like they were from the state. But if you look closely at the return addresses, at the fine print at the bottom, it was advertisement trying to make you believe that you urgently needed their assistance and services in obtaining information that you already got, that you already finished receiving from the state. So keep those in mind and be aware of those. So charity scams. This is a form of imposter fraud that involves pretending to be or impersonating a charity. Some red flags include the charity thanks you for a donation you don't remember making. They pressure you into making a donation immediately. They want you to donate using cash, gift cards, or wire transfers. Charity scams, these schemes in which scammers pose as representatives of legitimate charities in order to collect money or personal information from unsuspecting victims. These are very rampant. These scams often occur following major disasters or other newsworthy events when people are feeling generous and want to help those in need. While there are many legitimate charities, such as our organization, that do important work, scammers will try to take advantage of people's goodwill by creating fake charities or using real charity names to solicit donations for themselves. These are very prevalent on Facebook Messenger, as shown in the example. This was actually a messenger message from one of my family members. At first, as you can see, I responded. I thought it was a family member. And then they went on to talk about some organization that I knew that had nothing to do with her. So I immediately contacted her to let her know what was going on. But at that point, I didn't respond back. First party fraud. So first party fraud is fraud that doesn't involve any abuse of identity details, meaning the fraudster is the genuine holder of the account. It's you. So this form of fraud can be very diverse and includes application fraud. Services or products are applied for using false information or supporting documentation. This is very prevalent, and when people are purchasing large items such as cars and houses, they want to really get that piece of that asset or that piece of equipment desperately, and so they'll forge documents, they'll create documents, and just know that these departments, the places that actually have these applications, they have departments that actually look at these documents to see if they're legit, especially if the loan officer is seeing something off. They have special people that actually handle this, so you can't get away with this easily. Misuse of facility fraud, a facility such as an account or a policy that is being manipulated. You may be aware of a specific procedure or policy, and you manipulate that policy knowing that you can get away with committing some type of fraud. Asset conversion. This is basically what I talked about a little bit earlier, such as a car, where basically if you want to buy a car, maybe you and another person are in cahoots together with trying to obtain money fraudulently from a financial institution. So what you do is you find a VIN number at a reputable dealership that actually has a car advertised online. You use that VIN number with your lender. That lender looks up that VIN number. They see that it's a legitimate vehicle. They go ahead and approve your loan. For that particular vehicle, you get a check sent in the person's name that you're working with, and then that person cashes the check and split the funds with you. This is a very rampant situation right now in fraud, and it is being mitigated by many lenders, law enforcement, FBI agents. They all know about this now. It is they're closing in on it, and it's these fraudsters and these trends and these gangs that are actually doing this, they're actually being apprehended. False insurance claim, a claim or supporting document that contains falsified information, basically fraudulently stealing money from the insurance company, saying that there's a claim and there really isn't a claim. There's also another part of first party fraud that is like a Ponzi scheme. Now, Ponzi schemes can be first party, but they can also they can be schemes, financial schemes of people that are really unsuspecting. You know, they really trust the person that's they're giving their money to, and they're basically just using that money to source other people's money to ultimately keep the money for themselves. These Ponzi schemes, they don't last long at all. They generally fall and they crash and burn, and there are millions and millions of dollars that are lost, and people's lives are ruined. Be very careful when giving your money to any financial institution to invest it for you. Make sure you research them, make sure that they are legitimate, that they're have a good reputation. Even get some referrals from people. And even still, sometimes there are very rare situations when even after this, after doing all that, you still might find yourself in those type of schemes. But there are some out there that are very prevalent right now, where they ask for your money and they claim to be a reputable company. And then when you do your background search on that company, they're registered out of some other country. Be very careful with those. Those are not legitimate. They will crash and burn. Sure, you might get some money out of it initially, quickly, but when you play the long game or you play the greed game, it ends up biting you. Institutional fraud attacks. So recent trends suggest that fraud is not decreasing. First-time online banking usage increased over 200% in 2020 after COVID, naturally, which opened the door to a buffet for fraudsters. Larger institutions felt the brunt of the impact. Fraudsters coordinated efforts to attack larger institutions as they have more automated systems, more assets, more funds in place for approval processes. Some tactics used to target large institutions to gain funds were malware and ransomware. Malware is software that is specifically designed to disrupt, damage, or gain unauthorized access to a computer system. Once installed, it can be used to collect data from your network. We talked about that earlier. It can come in the form of viruses, Trojan horses, ransomware. These have devastating impacts on businesses, people, costing millions in damages due to loss of data breaches. Data breaches are huge losses to financial institutions. Ransomware is a type of malicious software designed to block access to a computer system until a sum of money is paid. This basically keeping your system and your network hostage. These can cause significant losses and disrupt business operations. It's like, and this has happened before, it's like you trying to go to your financial institution to withdraw money, but someone has elicited ransomware to that financial institution and they're on lockdown. You can't even get your money out because they can't access their systems. These things are, they create significant losses, and the disruption of business operations is tremendous. Also, all the other fraud types that we talked about, the losses from fraud are billions of dollars each year. The FTC received 5.7 million total fraud reports in 2021. 1.4 million of those were consumer identity theft cases. In 2021, 2.8 billion of losses were from imposter scams, and 392 million were from consumer online shopping scams. Be very careful when you're ordering from Facebook and Instagram. Make sure it's a legitimate company that you're buying from. So what are financial institutions doing to mitigate these fraudsters? Mitigation efforts include digital identifying verifications, such as entering in code words, passcodes, security questions, and things like that. One-time passcode where you try to access your account and they want to send you a code to your phone that you have to enter in. Knowledge-based authorizations where they ask you some question from 30 years ago that only you know. Those are crazy sometimes. Sometimes I wonder where in the world did they get this information, but it's all public record, and you can search a lot of LexisNexis tools to find that information. Document scans. This one is fairly new to a lot of lending institutions, but not only do they scan, they want you to scan your driver's license in, but there are some financial institutions that will go a little further. I actually became a member of 2 financial institutions that sold cryptocurrency, and in order for me to get accounts there, I had to write on a piece of paper that what the date was and that I wanted to open an account with them, sign my name on the piece of paper, hold it in front of me with my driver's license in front of the paper, and take a selfie of myself with that, holding that information. That was some serious acrobatics trying to do that. It made me sweat trying to do that. But that actually happened with 2 financial institutions, and that's how they are trying to mitigate fraud as best as possible. I don't think there's a fraudster that can do something like that and actually try to commit identity theft. So it's actually not a bad idea, but once again, it takes acrobatics to do it. All right, so let's talk about protecting yourself. So as we know, identity theft is a growing problem in the US for the past few years. It is difficult for victims to deal with these issues because theft methods are becoming more sophisticated with time. Citizens must safeguard their personal information if they want to avoid identity theft scenarios in 2022. It is so important more than ever to protect yourself against ID theft, scams, and other types of fraud. If it's too good to be true, it probably is a fraud scheme designed to prey on those desperate, unknowledgeable, or easily influenced. Some ways to protect yourself include password protecting your devices. Use different passwords. I know that's hard. Some of us can't remember what happened yesterday, but that's a good method to use different passwords. Watch out for phishing attempts. Slow down, spot check, stop. Don't send the email. Don't click on anything. Be careful who you give your personal information out to over the phone. Regularly check your credit report. Freeze and unfreeze that credit report. You can freeze all three of those credit bureaus and unfreeze it when you need to, when you're ready to apply for credit. You can contact each individual credit agency to do that. If you actually have an account or some type of membership with one where you can see all three of your credit reports, a lot of times you won't be able to freeze on using their site to freeze the other credit reports, because for some reason they just don't allow you to do that. You can always freeze the one that you're a member of, but the other two, you have to actually go to their individual sites to freeze it. Protect and shred your documents. Limit the number of credit cards you carry in your wallet. I probably carry maybe 2. Some people like to put their credit cards in the cell phone wallet. Not a bad idea, but just keep in mind that some fraudsters and tricksters and scammers, they actually have devices that can get close to you that can transmit information from your cell phone if they get close enough. So sometimes that may not be such a good idea, keeping it there, although it is very convenient. ID protection services. So ID protection services usually have a monthly fee that include credit monitoring, ID theft insurance, credit repair assistance, and sometimes dark web monitoring, which is great. Some services charge about $10 to $15 per month, depending on what is included in the services. These services can be purchased from a variety of places, such as credit card companies like Discover, they have one, or credit reporting agencies such as Equifax, and independent companies like LifeLock. You should also monitor your credit reports frequently to ensure that there are no erroneous accounts on there or errors as a result of someone starting the process of stealing your identity. So keep that in mind. And organizations that are willing to help. There are also nonprofit organizations who are willing to help and guide you in the right direction, as well as provide great information such as Cybercrime Support Network. And they can be reached at fightcybercrime.org. And ECFTA, they're helping organizations prevent fraud one step at a time. The NCFTA has assisted their partners in preventing $12.25 billion in financial losses, and over 4,000 cases were referred to law enforcement. Their website is www.ncfta.net. Also, stop all contact with scammers or fraudsters. Now, especially for the romance scams. Look, I know they're fine, but if you know that this is a scam, you got to stop talking to them. Keep all documentation related to the scam, because if they're prosecuted, you might need that information. Also to recover funds from your banking institution, you will need those types of documentation. If you provide financial information, contact your bank or credit card company immediately to shut down the card or the bank account. If you paid using a gift card or wire transfer, contact that issuer so that they can advise you of what kind of processes they have in place, or company policies they have in place that can help mitigate the situation for you. Freeze your credit report. We talked about that. Contact all 3 agencies to put a freeze on your file. You can report the fraud to several people. You can report the fraud to the business, the site or app where the crime took place, the FBI Internet Crime Complaint Center, the website's there, the Federal Trade Commission for those financial crimes, your state attorney general's office. And of course, if you know that someone is in danger, especially if it's a scam or a romance scam, and they're getting very violent towards them for not sending money, please contact 911 immediately. I would like to thank you for tuning in and listening to Protecting Yourself from Fraud. I hope this seminar was helpful and you're able to utilize the information and tips when suspicious of activities or emails aiming to gain account information or funds from you. The Everyday Daily Real Adult Nonprofit Learning Organization conducts several other seminars for the everyday adult navigating through life's challenges and processes. Please reach out to me via phone or chat if you would like additional information. Your contribution will allow us to continue to provide free education to our young adults and local communities, as well as be utilized to provide educational material and information to young adults as they navigate through their learning and development process within the T.E.D.R.A nonprofit learning organization. Please visit our website for additional information about the organization and our mission, as well as learn information about the teacher and our board of directors and the other videos that are posted from our seminars. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Thank you and have a great day.